Oh, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Meant to get this up earlier, but was kind of waiting until I heard about all the roster moves today for the New York Giants, all the changes they made throughout the roster, some of the players that were cut, some of the players that will now be brought back on the practice squad, and some of the players that we will be bringing in. And as I expected, and pretty much every New York Giants fan expected, the New York Giants today were very active in terms of free agency after cutdown day. After all, we do have a lot of holes. Before I get started on the video, first off, I just want to say thank you to all the incredible, encouraging words today that I received on Twitter. If you guys are a part of my live streams, you guys have, encouraged me along the way over the last couple of months since you saw me get more active on YouTube. I took 2 or 3 months off, to be honest with you, because one, there wasn't a lot to talk about, but two, I was trying to improve things in my personal life. And one of those things certainly was trying to get back in better shape. As I said today on this tweet, and I was blown away by all the kind words that you guys said today. But I told you guys in my live streams that my initial goal was to hit 200 pounds before the start of the regular season. And I was able to do that. So I shared that today with you guys on Twitter, and you guys blew it up and all the kind comments. It just awesome. Thank you to everybody, and everybody that said that I inspired them even a little bit to start losing weight themselves. That means a lot to me. It makes me feel good. But just wanted to share this with you guys, man. About 4 months ago, I stepped on a scale, was mortified at the number I saw. It was 248 pounds, way too high for a man at 5'10". I weighed in today and reached my goal for the start of the NFL season a little early. I hit 248 pounds, down 30 to 35 to go. My end goal is 165 to 170. And you guys asked for a before and after picture, so I added that to the thread. But thank you to everybody for all the support. I felt the need to do that because it made my day. All the kind words and everybody showing their support. And it just makes me so proud and happy of the community that I've built on my channel and just Giants fans in general. All the support you guys always show, not just for me, but, for one another. You guys are great. So thank you guys so much for all the support. I just want to let you guys know that you guys made my day. But let's jump into it. Enough of that. This isn't a weight loss channel. Let's jump into some of the moves today for the New York Giants, some of the things that they did, some of the things some of you guys may like, some of the things you guys may hate. Yesterday, I heard a lot of Giants fans going absolutely bonkers and crazy over some of the players that the New York Giants decided to cut. Well, you got the guys back for the most part on the practice squad. I understand they're not, as of now, part of the 53-man roster, but the Giants were able to bring back some of the favorites that went unclaimed. As a matter of fact, I don't think any of the New York Giants players were claimed. An insane amount of Jets were claimed, 11, one of which we claimed, and we'll get into him a bit throughout this video, but 11 players that the Jets cut. Think about that. Out of 90, they cut, 37? 11 of them were picked up. And we picked up one. You have to figure the Giants got a good look at him, being that we had joint practices. I'm excited about him. We'll get into him in a second, though. These are some of the guys coming back on the practice squad, some of your favorites. All of them were in training camp with the team. Quarterback Davis Webb, running back Corbin, wide receiver C.J. Board, Jalen Moore, tight end Austin Allen, offensive lineman Garrett McGinn, Will Holden, Roy Mebeteka, I think that's how it's pronounced, the offensive lineman that OCU Minora knew from the UK. Defensive end Ryder Anderson, linebacker Quincy Roche. That was a big one that a lot of people wanted back and were very upset they didn't make the initial team. Well, he went unclaimed. Defensive backs Darren Evans, Zion Gilbert, Nate Metters, the safety, Trenton Thompson, and Harrison Hand. So a lot of guys in the secondary there at the back end of the practice squad. So those are the guys that made it back. In addition to that, Tony Jefferson, that we'll get into a bit in this as well. I think eventually he'll be part of the 53-man roster to start the year. According to Dan Duggan, it has something to do with the fact they have to start him on the practice squad, so it's not a fully guaranteed contract going into the year. Whatever it may be, I expect him more than likely to be a part of the 53-man roster before we take on the Tennessee Titans, is also, at least as of now, part of the practice squad. In terms of some of the players that the New York Giants outright released that were initially part of the 53-man roster, as I told you guys, this happens every year. Expect for this to happen. There's going to be some maneuvering with the roster. The Giants cut 4 players off the initial 53, none of whom I believe are on the practice squad. I don't think I said any of these players' names. They still definitely could be. They could certainly add them and drop somebody else, I suppose, if they go unclaimed somewhere else. The Giants announced they cut linebacker Austin Calitro, center Max Garcia, tight end Tanner Hudson, and defensive end Nick Williams. The one obviously Calitro is a fan favorite, a guy I was really rooting for, a guy I was really excited about when he initially made the 53-man roster, so that stinks. He worked his butt off, played really well in training camp, played really well in the preseason games, did not end up making the team. Max Garcia, veteran, that was kind of just a placeholder. You have to figure the guy we brought in from the Jets I'm sorry, not from the Jets, from the Eagles. I'll get into him in a second. Is probably going to replace him on the roster. Tanner Hudson was the third string tight end, and Nick Williams, the veteran defensive lineman. Tanner Hudson's the one interesting name for me because at least as of now, they have not replaced him. They did not go out there, at least to my knowledge, and add another tight end to fill his void. And we only had three tight ends on the roster to begin with, Chris Myrick being the second, and of course, our Daniel Bellinger, the rookie, being the one. So I have to think the Giants have another move in store for us, I would think. I don't think you're going to go into the year with two tight ends on the roster. Myrick's even more of an H-back. So I expect another move, and maybe there already was one that I missed, but I don't think so. I don't think they've made that move quite yet. So those are the four players that were released to make room for the players that we brought in today, and expect potentially for another move or two to take place. This coming out from Jeff. Ravens wanted safety Tony Jefferson back. Jeff Zerbeck, or whatever his name is. He's a legit source. Ravens wanted safety Tony Jefferson back, but sounds like he's joining the Giants, and joined the Giants he did. It was pending a physical. He passed the physical. So Tony Jefferson will be suiting up for the New York Giants. The clear link there, he played with Wink. If you go over his stats, he's been in the league since 2013. He'll be 30 this year. He had a knee injury in 2019, I believe, actually, which caused him to miss the entirety of the 2020 season as he was recovering. I think he had like 5 surgeries or something from what I read. And that's why he barely played last year, or at least that had to be some part of the reason why he didn't play too much last year. Started his career in Arizona, but as you can see, was there with Wink. He was in Baltimore from 2017 to 2019. So for those 3 years, he played alongside Wink as his defensive coordinator. So there's definitely some experience there. And that's the way I look at this move. Whether or not Tony Jefferson makes a high impact on the field this year, that remains to be seen. We don't even know if he's going to be the same player that he once was coming off the injury he sustained 2 years ago. Obviously, last year he probably wasn't, and he was getting back in the swing of things. But at a bare minimum, and the fact that he got cut from Baltimore leads you to believe that he's probably not near the same player that he once was. But regardless, you're bringing in a veteran that's familiar with what Wink wants to do. And we have a very young secondary to begin with. I think it's a good move. And I think he's probably going to be the fourth safety behind the rookie Belton to start the year. And, of course, our two starters with Julian Love and Xavier McKinney. The other thing here is it gives you a little bit more maneuverability in the sense that if Aaron Robinson is really struggling, and if you feel Cordell Flott may not be able to start opposite Adoree Jackson earlier in the year, or if somebody goes down with an injury, it enables you to potentially shift Julian Love to the outside in a pinch. It just gives you a little bit more maneuverability. So I like the move. It's a veteran familiar with Wing scheme. What's not to like? It's kind of reminiscent of some of the other safeties that we brought in. One of my subscribers said it on Twitter. Antoine Bethea makes kind of sense. Only I don't think he'll be thrusted into the starting role. But Bethea, of course, was familiar with Betcher's scheme. Didn't play well as a Giant. Logan Ryan, same thing, right? He was familiar with what Joe Judge and Patrick Graham, while he was with the New England Patriots. And the first year, he did a great job. The mistake was signing him to that 3-year extension. But it kind of gives me those kind of vibes. A veteran familiar with what you're looking to do in defense. On the defensive side in terms of the scheme that could provide some veteran leadership to a young secondary. So I like the move. I think it's a good pickup. In terms of some of the players that the New York Giants claimed today off of waivers, they claimed 4 players. Last year, I think they only claimed 3. These were the 4. 3 DBs, as you can see, which should be no surprise to anybody. We only had 8 DBs on the initial 53-man roster, so you have to figure they were going to make some moves there. And it's obviously a weakness of this football team. The other being an offensive lineman. We'll start there. Jack Anderson. We're going to get into a little bit more in depth with all these players as we go along through the video. But from the Philadelphia Eagles, the key there, he was initially drafted by the Buffalo Bills last year. I think he was a 7th-round pick. I will double-check that when I get to him, when I go through the players. But he was drafted, and Joe Shane obviously was a part of the drafting process. Justin Lane. I actually remember Justin Lane when I was going in more in depth in 2019 with some of the prospects. I remember Justin Lane out of Michigan, who's a cornerback / safety, I believe. I think he's capable of playing both, but played for Pittsburgh, known more for special teams. We'll jump into him a bit more too. Then you got Nick McLeod from Buffalo. Naturally, he is an undrafted free agent, I think last year out of Notre Dame. And then you got Jason, I think it's pronounced Panak. He is maybe the most intriguing player of these 4 that the New York Giants brought in today from the New York Jets. And again, he's the guy that I was kind of alluding to at the top of the video. The Giants got a good look at him, right? Because the Giants and the Jets had joint practices together. Obviously, the Giants were very impressed. First guy we're going to start with is Justin Lane. This is his draft profile. He was drafted in the 3rd round in 2019, the 20th overall pick in the 3rd round. So you're talking like the 84th overall pick in the draft, but a 3rd round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. In terms of what he's done so far in the NFL, he only has 41 combined tackles. The majority of those came on special teams. Never really carved out a niche in terms of being a starter. As you can see, he played in every game in 2020 and in 2021. Had no starts, though. Major reason being that he has tackles at all. I think almost all of them came from special teams purposes, but he was known to be a good special teamer. I would think that would be his initial role with this football team, and a guy that you hope probably doesn't see the field at some point this year in terms of the starting cornerback position. You're bringing him in for depth purposes. Next up, Jason Pinnock. He's an intriguing prospect for me. We'll jump more into him. 2021 was drafted by the Jets in the 5th round at the back end, very late 5th round pick. He was out of Pittsburgh, initially from Connecticut. 6 foot, 205 pounds. Let's jump a little bit further into him. Got this off The Athletic. The Jets submitted their initial cutdowns to the 53-man roster on Tuesday, and there were some surprises. The biggest was safety Jason Pinnock, the 2021 5th-round pick, who had a promising training camp. So Jets fans, at least their beat reporters, were very surprised that he was cut in the first place. In terms of his strengths and weaknesses coming into the pros, got this off NFL.com. Stout and feisty, will engage and shed and securely wrap the ball carrier, very fluid hips, backpedal, and change of direction agility. Has good trajectory assessment on the thrown ball, breaks quickly, and has decent ball skills. Good speed in pursuit with the chase skills to track down the ball carrier. Aware in the red zone, stays on the back line to take away fade throws, capable of making quarterbacks pay for their throws. Extremely aggressive to come up and put his body in traffic to make tackles. His weaknesses: takes poor angles to the ball, lacks the pure speed to chase down the ball carrier, has a high back pedal, and loses a step in transition. Plays with adequate speed, but there are concerns about his ability to hurdle and with truly explosive speedsters of the NFL. Needs to tighten his angles. So basically what they said with the initial criticism, needs to improve his footwork, and lowers his shoulder for the big hit rather than wrapping up securely. So those were some of the strengths and weaknesses on him coming into the pros just a year ago. But I do think this is at least an intriguing pickup. I'm not going to tell you this guy's going to make a big impact on the team this year, but you have to think the fact that the Jets had 11 players claimed off their roster, and he was the guy that at least seems like many felt was the biggest surprise. Obviously, the Jets had a lot of talent in terms of their overall talent pool this year in training camp, and he probably would have made the roster for a lot of teams around the NFL. So I think it's a good, savvy pickup by the New York Giants. He's still young, and maybe he's a guy that could, help make an impact this year, whether it be on special teams or whether it be just playing defense in general. Nick McLeod, like I said, not a ton to say about him. Out of Notre Dame, he's 6 foot, 193, undrafted player. Obviously, though, you have to know that the brain trust with the New York Giants, that being Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, like him. He was picked up by the Buffalo Bills last year as an undrafted free agent, and the New York Giants obviously felt well enough to bring him in to play in the secondary for the New York Giants. So we'll see how he performs. And then finally, the Giants picked up Jack Anderson. We all know that the New York Giants needed to make an addition on that offensive line. That's exactly what they did. I still wouldn't be surprised if the New York Giants making another offensive line addition, maybe more of a traditional tackle. But Jack Anderson, coming out of Texas Tech, initially drafted by the Buffalo Bills. You guessed it, Joe Schoen, Brian Daboll, connection there. They obviously like him. 6'4", 309 pounds, was in training camp this year for the Philadelphia Eagles. And a lot of people feel like he's got good transitional ability in terms of being able to play both the guard and the tackle. Probably stands a good chance to be either the swing tackle or backup interior offensive lineman for the New York Giants going into the year. So those are some of the moves that the New York Giants made. They fill out the final 53. For everybody that was going crazy about Quincy Roche, he's here. He's on the practice squad. We'll see how he does. Maybe he gets an opportunity to get called up with the big club. So no harm, no foul there. And we'll see how the rest of the offseason plays out. I still think the New York Giants can make a couple of moves, specifically at the tight end spot. I can't imagine the New York Giants go into the regular season with just 2 starting tight ends. Maybe they call up Austin Allen from the practice squad before the year starts. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But as always, if you liked what you watch, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.